we are going to talk about natural burials, but this was accidentally a natural burial because they didn't realize what they were doing back then. This cemetery is also a nature preserve. Short Cemetery. This special site is permanently protected by Illinois Nature Preserve, where one can gain an understanding of the sand prairies that used to expand across the region of Illinois up to the late 1800s, when the grassland was nearly all replaced by intensive agriculture. The site survived development over the decades out of respect for those who interred here. Short Pioneer Cemetery Prairie Natural Preserve is one of the several such pioneer cemetery sites that are preserved for the now rare biodiversity that survives within them. You got rare wildlife, settler graves, and rare plants. Ecology. Sand prairie range from wet to dry and alkaline to acidic. The plant communities tend to differ by soil pH. Different species will be found on the alkaline soils and the acidic soils. The site tends towards the drier and more alkaline site of the spectrum, as it is actually a small hill or ridge, although topography is subtle. The prairie is classified as a remnant prairie, meaning that it has not been plowed or altered beyond the burials, encroaching the shade. Therefore, is an example of the primeval Illinois landscape, of which very little remains today. And then if you want to support them. Organism, a Short Pioneer Cemetery Prairie Nature Preserve. People and nature thrive here together. Rare biodiversity needs participation from people. A 2010 scientific study discovered that several plant species, and likely the animals that depend on them, have disappeared from the site since it was preserved, primarily due to too much shade. In 2019, volunteers began cutting unnatural trees, burning and reintroducing lost species, and building community around the special preserve. We are coming up on Short Cemetery Nature Preserve, abandoned cemetery. Abandoned meaning that nobody new is buried here, but there is a more modern grave towards the front. An Illinois Nature Preserve, Short Cemetery. Short Cemetery Nature Preserve has been formally dedicated as a sanctuary for native plants and animals. It is maintained in its natural condition so that present and future generations can see the Illinois landscape as it appears in the past. The living example of our nature heritage is valuable for scientific studies and may provide habitat for rare plants and animals. Old pioneer cemeteries, like Short Cemetery, often support prairie remnants because they were never plowed or grazed. This 1 acre prairie represents what this part of Illinois looked like when European settlers arrived. The sandy nature of this soil type makes this prairie very dry, allowing 2 species of prickly pear cactus to be found here. Visitors are welcome, but please protect and perpetuate the nature preserve by not disturbing or removing anything. All features are protected by law. The hours are closed from dusk to dawn. This is what a natural burial site would be if you wanted to do a natural burial. People choose prairies, they choose preserves and places like that where they do not get embalmed, but they can be buried in a soft wooden casket, but usually with no casket. And here in Illinois, it is legal to get buried without a casket. So natural burial was also done here on accident because they didn't realize that the soft wooden coffins would collapse into the ground, leaving a big dip. The log stand for family members buried here. The Bible stands for a highly religious person, somebody with high status in the church, or somebody who loves books. But in this part of Illinois, it probably has to do with religious reasons. And this man, John, was born in 1828, and Anna was in 1841. So the more modern one, the last person to be buried here was in 2000. This is when the cemetery became abandoned. She was referred to as Nee Potter, born in 1914 and died in 2000. So this cemetery was abandoned then. And you can see all the wildlife. You can see the flowers. The preserve. You can see this section here, which is a border to a family plot. So in here you have to be careful because there's a few dips where coffins had sunk in, and that tells you that they were not made out of metal, that they were made out of a soft wood. So we're coming into a family plot. This family plot is not in a row. It's in an area, and it's gated off, or part of the gate has collapsed. Wow. Oh, come home with me. Look at these flowers. There's a stone that has a man holding up a book, which probably shows his dedication to God. Here's some more of the greenery in the prairie preserve, nature preserve. I've been here before when it was cold. There's another hand holding a book showing dedication to God. They all actually, 1, 2, 3, and 4 have the same hand holding up the Bible. We got some more wild flowers. And then, of course, we got the stones that get knocked down and stay on the ground. Here's another one with a Bible. So this community of families were very religious. There's some kind of red berry. And on some kind of seedling tree is red berries. Looks like a seedling tree. Wow, look at that. Okay.
Asparagus seeded out. Here. That's asparagus.
Is it? Looks like something else. You have to be careful because there is some graves that have sunken in, but the environment has taken it over. There's a bee. Is that bee mad?
Trying to get pollen off of a stone.
Wow! Look at that purple. Look at that purple. And in here are some sunken in grave. But I don't see a stone. But I'm also not going to walk over there. Some kind of red leaves. abandoned cemeteries always look overgrown. Every once in a while they're taken care of. But this tree, when they planted the tree for the family plot, it was probably a small tree. And they're born in the 1800s. This was founded in the 1800s. So that tree is how big it is now. And we got 2 little infant babies that have weeping willows for grieving. And look at that. Look at those blue flowers. I missed a lot of things. It's very overgrown, but this is a place that accidentally was a natural burial ground. And not just because it's on a prairie that is preserved, but also because they used a lot of soft wood coffins. And they were not embalmed. Well, most of these people aren't. And so that is a natural burial on accident.